just don't want us.
You know what time it is. You know what time it is.
How firm thy friendship. Oh,
you know what time it is. I'm raw with them boys of the fall. You know what time it is. On the ground with a nose for the ball. You know what time it is. Blood, sweat, and them tears for this game. Leaving it all out on the field with no fear for you lames. Yeah, you know what time it is. Come brawl with them boys of the fall. Covered in gray and scarlet, massive. Stiff arms to your jaw, we breaking it. We sick of seeing you clowns with the crown, we taking it.
What up, Buckeye Nation? Welcome to the Buckeye Boys, where we talk about college football with real fans. I'm Devan, that's TG, and today got a show for you specifically on Kyle McCord versus Will Howard. We're going to dive into that. We're going to bring up some analytics, some stats, and talk about it, man. Who's going to go higher in the draft? Why should they? But first off, TG, how you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing well, Dev. I've actually been wanting to discuss this because this has started to become a topic because of the NFL draft boards, as typically.
It has, man. You know, there's the discussion of, you know, obviously Will Howard upped his draft stock, but how high? Where should he go? Is he a first rounder? Is he a second rounder? And obviously the debate, because Kyle McCord left Ohio State, had some things to say about Ohio State when we lost to Scum, had some smart comments now. And so it's a good talking point to discuss who's better. Did we upgrade over Kyle McCord? I'll give you my fast response. Hands down, easily.
Pretty much.
Yes, Kyle McCord would not have won the national title with this Ohio State team, I believe. But, TG, this is pretty much your show today. You've done all the research. You're very passionate about this subject, so I'll tune in when necessary. But let us have it. Where you want to start? Where are we at with this?
Well, first, let me start with your comment about Kyle talking some ish. I'm pretty sure after Ohio State won the Natty, he ain't talking no more because he knows he wishes.
Amen.
He wishes. So let's just start off with the basic stuff, right? Kyle McCord versus Will Howard. Let's start off with their statistics this year. Will Howard had 4,000 yards passing. He had 4,010 yards with 35 touchdowns, only 10 interceptions. Kyle McCord. 4,779 yards with 34 touchdowns to 12 interceptions. That's the only advantage Kyle has is yardage, but we can even go deeper into that. So I think this is part of the reason why he's up there. But also the other thing why he's up there is because he has an NFL arm. Like people will say he has a stronger arm than Will Howard. That is absolutely factual. I would not deny that. He does have a better arm as far as a stronger arm. But he's not that much more accurate because when you take a look at their adjusted completion percentage, Will Howard is rated much higher than Kyle McCord. By my
Yeah.
It is.
I wanted to ask you on that subject right there. There's Will Howard has taken a lot of criticism throughout the season because it started off with he's not the best passer. Specifically, he's not the best downfield passer. And then we saw the season play out. We saw some miscues on some deep passes and whatnot. And his ball doesn't look the prettiest flying in the air. But, dude, when you saw what he did in the playoffs and you saw once he started connecting with these receivers, I don't share the take that he's not a very accurate passer with anybody. I am nowhere near there. I think Will Howard's ball placement got better and better and was on point. I'm not sure I agree with the discussion of, you know, Will Howard is not a very good passer and he's not a very good downfield passer. Now, I know that Jeremiah Smith and a lot of players, they had to wait on some of these balls and different things like that, especially earlier in the season. Will Howard going from Kansas State to Ohio State's a pretty big speed difference that you got to get used to. But he made the passes. The receiver caught the ball when he threw it down the field. Not sure what else you're asking for there, but your thoughts.
Well, that's the funny thing. I'm not shocked. And to be honest, this is actually the other thing is I'm not surprised that people would say that because when you looked at him at Kansas State, it wasn't good. But you also have to take into account what he had around him and the type of coaching he had. That's what you have to take into account there. That's some idea. And when he came to Ohio State, we know Ryan Day is a guru of quarterbacks. He knew, and he said with Will Howard, he has the arm to get it down there. It's his mechanics that were the problem. Ryan Day and Chip Kelly hammered it in to Will Howard about his mechanics, and he was good. It was going to take time for him to master that. Okay, this guy just got here. He doesn't know. He didn't know how to play quarterback as well as he should have. So I think that I wasn't really buying into the narrative because I said, looking over that the Kansas State tape, he did get it down the field. It's just that again, you have terrible receivers. So I wasn't worried about that. I knew he'd get better under Ryan Day, and what happened? He did.
Yeah, 100%. So let's dive into Kyle McCord here a little bit. Here's what I've been reading, right? I've been reading that he could go as high as the 3rd round. Okay, so that's when I've been reading. Here's some things they talk about him, his positive things. Mechanically, a sound thrower, has a quick and snappy release. Thrives playing from the pocket on time and in rhythm. Accurate pocket passer who delivers passes with good ball placement. Knows how to toggle between throwing with velocity and touch down the field. Negatives. Average mobility and athleticism, not quick-footed to evade consistent defensive pressure. Mechanics and decision-making decrease when under pressure. Tends to lock on the initial read. Needs to improve eye manipulation and must reduce turnover-worthy plays. That is kind of the overall picture of the grades that he is getting in the NFL right now. Do you agree with that assessment as far as the positives and the negatives of Kyle McCord?
Okay, the positives I somewhat agree with. It's when, because I'll say this with Kyle McCord, when he's not under pressure, that's when he's at his best. When he's not, when he is, he's not. He can't make good decisions. Now, even when he has a clean pocket, he still finds a way to make bad decisions. Like you've seen it during his time at Ohio State. He had clean pockets, but he made bad decisions, and he held on to the ball for way too long. Like we talk about how the offensive line let him get sacked a couple times. Well, that's probably because he held on for the ball too long. Like I go back to the Penn State game last year when we won 20-13, even though it should have been like just way more than that. And the reason why the score was that way is because Kyle made stupid decisions, especially when he has a clean pocket. As much as people ragged on the offensive line of the Ohio State Buckeyes, I don't think they were worth getting ragged on. I think Kyle made them worse than they should have because they were giving him time. So the positives I somewhat agree with, but you also have to take into account that that's also part of the negative is he holds on for the ball way too long, can't make quick decisions. He doesn't get the ball out of his hands fast at all. That part I don't agree with. Like he just does he can't make decisions on time. And when you have receivers like what Ohio State had, dude, just throw the ball to freaking Marvin Harrison Jr. Throw the ball to them because they're running open. They're getting open. You're not throwing it to them. So you can't read the field either. So
yeah, so we'll go back and I'll talk about the things that I saw when Kyle McCord was at Ohio State, the things that frustrated me, right? Number one, the pocket presence was just, there was zero. There was just none at all, man. He would just, just get sacked when he didn't need to. The intentional groundings that he had were pretty embarrassing from time to time. And then his ability to see the field. He just didn't have it at Ohio State, was extremely aggravating. Some of the throws that, he would throw were just like extremely questionable. And then he goes to Syracuse. And I didn't watch much, of Syracuse, but I do know this. He chucked the ball over there. I mean, Syracuse threw the ball, I think, more than any other team in the country. And you wonder why he had 4,700 yards. Mm-hmm. That was the only thing that they had. That was the only offense that they had. And then what defenses was he going up against?
That's the other thing I was going to bring up.
When he was at Ohio State, he was going up against some of the best defenses in the nation, right? When he was at Syracuse, what top defenses did Kyle McCord go against? Now, I haven't dove into that and dove into that analytics side of thing, but talk to us about that.
Well, that's the thing. He didn't go up against any top defenses during his time there. He really didn't. Now, I want to go back to starting with this one. Like Pitt would have been a good one because usually they're in the top 20 like every year since Randy Bates had been there, but this year they were 84th. They were not good this year. every team in the ACC, I believe that their top defense, I think, ranked in like the top 60 for the most part overall in FBS. So like you
Yeah.
weren't really facing elite defenses. You were not. You were facing very poor defenses from a passing standpoint and from a run the ball standpoint. Because some of these defenses against the run were absolutely terrible. Like Miami, they were terrible against the pass, terrible against the run. They were not good at both. Their defense sucked. And it's not surprising that they got beat the way they did. So with Kyle, and that's the other thing where it's like, dude, I will tell you his adjusted completion percentage is 75.4 at best. His pretty much his time, which was 23rd in all of college football, by the way, 23rd. And then his time to throw was 8th. So you had as much time to throw, but your adjusted completion percentage is 23rd.
Yeah.
You had literally the most time. You had a lot of time to throw, and yet you still can't get rid of it on a good accuracy basis. His accuracy was terrible. And again, that's the best part about going to Syracuse. I've never, and if you listen to Joe Cattle talk about Kyle McCord, he talks about all the adversity he went through and trying to compliment him for that. And I said, Joe, he never, like the adversity he went through started at Ohio State, and that's why he left. He took his ball and went home because he couldn't handle it. Like, when you look at the Michigan game, what was the biggest reason we lost? It was because of him we lost. Like,
100%.
everybody else was doing their job. Like, the best plays that we had was when Kyle was just either throwing it to Marvin because we knew Marvin was going to bail him out, or the other time, which was him just handing the ball off and just letting Trey Henderson and Chip Trainum just run, which was the best set of plays that we had all game.
Yep.
And he couldn't read the field for nothing either.
Yeah.
Just look at go from top to bottom. This dude, his chart is terrible. Like if you're talking about like breaking it from the middle, left, right, it's terrible. It's not good. It's not accurate. It's inaccurate as heck.
Yeah. And then you go from the move from Ohio State to Syracuse. So he didn't get ran out of Ohio State. Ryan Day did not tell him to leave. He just didn't get promised the starting job, right? So
yeah,
the first sign of issues, or the first wall that Kyle McCord hit, he ran from it. He didn't want to face it, didn't want to try to go through it, climb over it, nothing. He runs. Where does he run? To a way lesser school, right? What is the huge difference between Ohio State and Syracuse? The pressure that you're under. The pressure that you're under, right? So hold on. So the pressure that you're under, right? So at Ohio State, Kyle McCord was under an immense amount of pressure as the quarterback. He goes to Syracuse and nobody gives a dang, man. You can throw 3 pick sixes in one game and they'll talk a little bit about you, but you're not going to get beat down like you're going to at Ohio State. Well, what does the NFL have in it? Pressure. Every single game, man, you must operate at the highest level. So I don't understand as an NFL scout, if you want to see how a player is going to handle the NFL, it's best to watch him in scenarios that closely resemble the NFL. Ohio State. Ohio State and the games that they play resemble the NFL way more than Syracuse and any games that Syracuse plays. So when you look at his time at Ohio State, yeah, he had some good passing yards, was third team all Big Ten. Because you put any quarterback in that situation, they're going to be third team all Big Ten with the receivers. You throw the ball up in the air with your eyes closed, there's a good chance one of our receivers is going to get the ball, right? But he was bad at Ohio State. Now, not as bad as what people make him out to be, like statistically and stuff, but he was not a great quarterback at Ohio State. And at Syracuse, he did better. And everybody wants to talk about how much better he is as a quarterback. Is he? He went from Ohio State to Syracuse. If you want to know the kind of quarterback that Kyle McCord is and how he's going to play in the NFL, go watch his time at Ohio State. Don't watch his time at Syracuse. You're going to get Kyle McCord at Ohio State in the NFL. You're not going to get Kyle McCord at Syracuse. NFL teams are not going to throw the ball like that. They're not going to play as weak as schedules like that. And he's going to be under an immense amount of pressure.
Yep, that's basically the truth of it. And as a matter of fact, go. That's why when I look at this whole thing with Ohio State. Because when people, and we're going to get to Will Howard, but when people try to say it's because of the talent he had, it's like, guys, Kyle, it was no different for him. He had a bunch of talent at wide receiver here, and he still sucked. I guess statistically he didn't, but think about who was bailing him out. We had Marvin Harrison Jr., who's generational at Ohio State. He was one of the best, top two best receivers a lot of us put him at, right? So Kyle had him, and that's his best friend, by the way. So you had him, and you still sucked. And guess who Will Howard had? Jeremiah Smith, who we say is every bit as good, if not potentially better than Marvin.
He's
And
better.
that's crazy. Yeah, that's the crazy thing, is he's better. And that's what's crazy, is we have another generational receiver. So what was the difference between the both of them? Compare their time at Ohio State. You see how Kyle looked. Like, I'll give him the credit for the Notre Dame game. That was pretty much the best he looked. As far as in a high pressure situation, he got the ball down the field, even though he's pretty lucky that Notre Dame dropped some interceptions. Let's be honest about that one. He's pretty lucky. So when I'm looking at what Kyle, like, not only is there more pressure in the NFL, but the media is much harsher too when you suck than college football. Because the media can't be as, like, if you see Baker Mayfield in Cleveland with Cleveland Browns, or any New York quarterback, the media will flat out ask you, "Hey, why are you hot ass?"
Yeah,
Literally,
yeah.
They will flat out ask you that. They don't care. They will
Yeah.
flat out ask you.
Yeah, he's going to be under some serious pressure in the NFL. Now move
Unless
on.
he's a backup.
Yeah.
Unless he's
Now
a backup or a third stringer.
Yeah. Now what did Will Howard do? So Will Howard at Kansas State took him to a Big 12 title, right? Was a pretty good quarterback there, man. Now Kansas State will tell you that he got ran out of the room, and ask yourselves, well, how'd their season go this year when they lost Kyle McCord? Not that well. Okay. So I mean, Will Howard. So Will Howard started at a smaller school, took him to a Big 12 championship, right? And then had pretty good production there. And then he moves up to Ohio State, where the expectations are 100 times more. The pressure is 100 times more. And let's talk about the knocks, the failures of Will Howard at Ohio State. The Oregon game, not on Will Howard. Will Howard did his job. He drove us down the field and to kick a field. He did his job that game. That is not on him. The next thing, the scum game. Yeah, Will Howard played horrible. Was he injured?
Yes.
That's a big question, right? That's the big question to ask. But ultimately, in the end, Will Howard took us and we won the national title game. He was under, so throughout the years, Ohio State quarterbacks are always under pressure. But this year in particular, with what we did in the transfer portal with the returning seniors, you could argue that Ohio State, Ryan Day, and Will Howard were under the most pressure that Ohio State has ever been under ever. And Will Howard handled it. He handled it, man. And not only that, let's look at the off-field stuff. Let's look at some of the comments Kyle McCord made in some of his interviews about Ohio State when they lost, the decisions they made. It was kind of a smart aleck about it, taking shots at Ohio State. Let's look at Will Howard and how he handled himself in the media. He would admit when he make mistakes. He would say sorry. He should have done better. He should have done all those things. So all those things come into play when you're an NFL quarterback. The off-field stuff, the on-field stuff. But in every single category of an NFL chart, on-field, off-field, physicality, arm talent, I have Will Howard. Do I think Kyle McCord can throw a ball further down the field than Will Howard? Yes, I do. That's the only thing that I think Kyle McCord can do better than Will Howard. Do I think Kyle McCord has it? I don't know. I do not give Kyle McCord the more accurate category either. I just don't do it. That's just my opinion. I'm not some grand analyzer here. I'm not some football coach. I'm a fan, right? I watched Kyle McCord. I watched Will Howard. I think Will Howard is more accurate. Does Kyle McCord throw a prettier ball? Sure.
Yeah.
Should we give a dang how pretty it looks if it gets the job done? I don't. So your thoughts on Will Howard?
Well, that's the thing. Like I've actually talked about it. The thing that a NFL quarterback needs is character, leadership, traits, and intangibles. It's the biggest thing they need. And when I look at Will Howard, he has it all. On top of the ability to be accurate, he was one of the most, if not the most accurate quarterback in all college football this past year. I mean, think about it like this. I already talked about he had 73% completion percentage in the regular season. You know what his completion percentage and his yards per game were in the playoffs?
What?
It was 75.5%. So basically 76% completion
Golly.
percentage in the playoffs, and then 287.5 yards with 8 touchdowns per game. That's how much he was averaging.
Yeah.
And that's crazy. And his guess what his adjusted completion percentage is? 85%.
Now,
85.
hey, how many 80% completion games did Will Howard have?
Like 7.
I think
7
he
or
had
8.
6. Well, I think the record was 5 previously.
Yeah.
And I think he had 6. I think he broke the Ohio State record
He
for
did.
80% completion. I know he broke it. I just don't know the exact number. I think it's 6, but either way, he broke
I think
the
I
record.
saw it was like 7 or 8. It was somewhere around those two.
And we want to debate whether Kyle McCord is more accurate than Will Howard. Completion percentage does not lie. I don't know. I
Mhm.
don't know what else you want to say. Now, you could say Will Howard was throwing to better receivers. True.
How did
He
that
was.
at Ohio State?
He was. Exactly. But 2 things on that note. Kyle McCord did that at Ohio State and did not do what Will Howard did. And Kyle McCord was not facing near the defenses that Will Howard and his
Yeah,
receivers
he was facing.
were facing.
Think about this. He was facing like the entire season, like for the most part, top 10 defenses. That's what he was facing, like pretty much the whole year was like top 10 defenses, which is no joke. So
Yeah.
when you're going up against that, on top of the fact that under pressure, he completed 55% of his passes, which is like the highest, I believe, in college football. I'm on like top 3 or top 2, somewhere around there. And in the playoffs, he was the most accurate under pressure. So think about that real quick. If you're an NFL scout, so like when you look at the growth that he took and you look at what he was able to do, and in big time game situations where we needed him to make a play, he did. That's the other thing you need. A guy who can make big plays in big moments on a consistent basis. Will did it in the entire year. The one game he did not do it was Michigan, but for granted, he did have a little bit of a concussion, so I could give him a pass on that one.
Yeah. So if you compare Will Howard's worst game, the Scum game, Kyle McCord's worst game, the Pitt game, Pittsburgh's defense was ranked 84th. Scum, the strength of their team was defense. They had a pretty good defense. Okay?
They had like the top 30, top 25.
Right.
Defense.
Kyle McCord, his worst game was 10 times worse than Will Howard's performance against Scum. He threw 3 pick sixes in that game. Will Howard threw 2 interceptions. Okay, so which one's worse? 3 pick sixes against the 84th defense, or 2 interceptions against, I don't know what Scum's defense was ranked last year. But
again, I think it was around, let me see. I can look it up.
But it was the strength of their team. Okay. So, and in a rivalry game, the most intense game, Syracuse and Pittsburgh, what is that, a rivalry game that I'm not aware of?
No.
Yeah. So,
It's not.
point being, but so, in conclusion, I think we made some pretty good points about where we're at. I think the national media loves bringing this story up because it gets them clicks, because they know Ohio State fans will totally tune in and read an article that says Kyle McCord rising above Will Howard in draft stock. The NFL draft, and some decision makers there make some very, very questionable decisions every single year that I'm like, yo, what is going on right now? But I don't see in a million years, I don't think these 2 quarterbacks are close whatsoever. And I think Will Howard, at worst, is getting drafted in the 2nd round, and at best is getting drafted in the 1st round. Kyle McCord, at worst, is getting drafted in the last round at best. and I mean absolute best, is getting drafted in the third round, because we also know that the NFL draft, the craziest people go insane over quarterbacks, man. Blinders
Mhm.
get put up. People think that they're going to be, a franchise saving, changing quarterback. They think they can change them. They think they can save them. They think they can do all these things. They think, instead of looking at what they know. Go back, look at what each of these quarterbacks did at Ohio State with the same talent around them, and that'll tell you everything you need to know. Ask yourself, who had the better season at Ohio State, Will Howard or Kyle McCord? And that will answer your question as to who is the better quarterback and who should go higher in the draft.
Yeah,
TG,
if you want
closing
to know,
statements.
here's a closing statement for you. I just found out. Okay, so they were ranked top 40 overall, and they were the 10th ranked defense in the nation at allowing only 307 yards per game. So in a way, I think that shows you how much better that was with
Yeah,
Will Howard. That's just obvious. So I
yeah.
that's my final statement, is that Kyle McCord will never be the quarterback that Will Howard is. I think Will Howard is on the brink, could be a first round quarterback. Kyle at best is a third rounder at best. That's what he is. He will never be better than that.
Yeah, I would personally never take him in the third round if I was a GM for a team. But
I'll wait till the
anyway,
fifth round.
yeah, 100%. But all righty, Buckeye Nation, we appreciate the heck out of you for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button if you could, and subscribe if you already haven't. Also, think about becoming a member. It's only $1.99. Helps go to support the channel. The biggest thing you could do that we ask of you is to share this on your X account, on your Instagram, on your Facebook. Tell your friends and family about us. Help us get some more views, some more subscribers. We'd absolutely appreciate it. But on that note, go Buckeyes. OH.
Io.